Welcome to Drifting Deeper, a podcast about consciousness, culture, and human potential. I'm Nick, and I'll be your host today. Now, it's fairly likely you might notice it's been quite a bit of a hiatus between my last episode and today. And in order to relaunch Drifting Deeper and get back into the amazing podcasting world, I went out and found myself the amazing Marian Spurgeon to interview. Now, Marian is a hypnotist operating in the northern United States, but she's so much more. She's also a speaker and an educator, and she just launched her own online training and certification program to teach the art of hypnosis. So if you're interested in learning more about hypnosis and your own mind and the amazing things you can do with it, be sure to go by marianspurgeon.com. I'll include the link below for you. And while you're there, be sure and tell her I said hello. Marian and I really enjoyed putting together this interview for you today. So go ahead, sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, today's guest is Marian Spurgeon. Marian, how's it going today? And did I say your last name right?
Pardon?
How's it going? And did I say your last name right?
Spurgeon? Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so you are a hypnotist. Do you go by hypnotist or hypnotherapist?
Hypnotist. I started out as hypnotherapist when I first opened my practice in Galesburg, Illinois. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I had a member of the National Guild of Hypnotists try to convince me that that was going to get me sued. Mm-hmm. And even though there's like no basis for that, it's not illegal to call yourself a hypnotherapist. And in some ways, I think that it is more reflective of the way that I use hypnosis as to differentiate it from stage hypnosis or some other kind of hypnosis. But I switched over to hypnotist for a couple of reasons. One is that it did circumvent that particular battle, which I don't even really care about that much. But then, secondly, also it's better for search engine optimization. So anyone out there who's considering which way to go, and you can always go both ways too, but that's a good argument for using hypnotist.
Gotcha. And yeah, that does make a lot of sense. When people hear the T word, they always think they're going to be sitting on a couch talking about, how their parents made them feel when they were younger. And
right.
Talking to someone with a Freudian accent.
Yeah. I mean, you can also, my rationale for it was that, if you go see a massage therapist, you understand it's because the massage is therapeutic. It doesn't mean that you're going to have psychotherapy with a massage person. But, it kind of clarifies it even more, perhaps.
That would actually be an interesting combination, though, I think, massage therapy and some type of change work for the emotions that get released, because you know how the body will store those emotions.
Definitely. And I did have a classmate in my hypnosis training that was considering how to go about that, but I'm not sure how far she got with it.
Interesting. That would be kind of fun. We should see if we can find a massage therapist to chime in on that at some point. All right, so you are starting your own educational source for hypnosis, I understand.
Yes, I am launching a certification training. Mm-hmm. And one of the unique things about my training is that it starts when you sign up and it finishes when you finish it. So It's more of a self-directed learning experience than most hypnosis trainings are. Most hypnosis trainings have specific dates where everyone is going to meet each time. Mm-hmm. And I thought a lot about that when I was designing this course. And one of the reasons why I think this is going to be really good is, first of all, it's going to allow people to do it on their own schedule. But secondly, just the setup of it kind of mimics the realities of being a practicing hypnotist, which is that you have to organize yourself. You have to be self-directed. You need to kind of even decide what's important to you to learn. And there's going to be another feature of this training is that I am going to not even count the time that I teach people towards their certification hours. Only practice that is allowed in the workbook is going to count towards certification. So everyone who goes through this program is going to have at least, X hours of practical hands-on experience.
Very cool. And that is something that's missing in a lot of courses, is the practicum.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's so much power in having questions and experimenting and just trying things to see what will happen. And also the other thing is, I have people going through this program and they're going to easily be able to find people to practice with. So, and that's also part of the setup. So there's going to be kind of a prefabricated sequence that goes out when you sign up for it. And then there's going to be scheduled live time every week at a certain time. So then to fulfill your hours, you can either meet up with people on your own, or you can show up to the practice hours to ensure that you can find somebody to practice with.
Nice. Okay, so you're kind of, you're not just teaching hypnosis, you're also teaching the weird and wacky scheduling talent that the really successful hypnotists have to get down.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. That was definitely something I think in my first training was certainly missing. I kind of organically grew into hypnosis and then got certification when I was a lot younger than I am now. But that was never covered, was how to actually set up your schedule.
Yeah, how to set up your schedule. Yeah, it's going to have a lot of practical stuff like that. It's going to have, and then, so I'm going to teach it in 2 levels. There's going to be level 1 and level 2. Level 1 is just going to be kind of the basic building blocks of hypnosis, how to, do very simple inductions, how to do anchoring and anchor collapsing, and just kind of parts, stuff that you would use in any session for almost anything. And then part 2 is going to be applications. And I'm going to walk people through how to do this for anxiety, how to do this for weight loss, how to do this for smoking cessation. Or if you have an idea of what you want to do with hypnosis, you can design your own self-specialization path. So, for example, if somebody decided that their heart's calling was to help women who are grieving because they miscarried or something like that, they could design a special program for that and log the hours. I'm not even really necessarily interested in what you are doing with hypnosis, but just getting that practical experience. And because I think that if somebody designs a program for that, they're going to also know the concepts that we use for smoking cessation and weight loss and anxiety.
Yeah, definitely. And that's an amazing thing about hypnosis, is once you have the basics down, you can just head off in any direction that you want at that point. I think the most micro niche I ever saw someone announce themselves in was women between the ages of 40 to 45 who were starting their own business in the health and fitness industry.
That is a really small niche.
Wow. Good luck.
Well, no, that could be really good. I think that if you just consider how many people in the United States that covers, that probably covers a lot.
Yeah,
if you could make those people feel like you're speaking directly to them, that would be awesome. I think you can even do that through Facebook ads and that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to just say on the riffing on Facebook ads, this is another thing that I picked up recently, is that you can test the market for something by Facebook. Like, if you create a social media post and you can test it to certain audiences, but just through A/B testing, you can see what kind of interest is in for this sort of niche or that sort of niche.
Okay, I like that. Start doing your testing instead of just trying to force people into a niche, which I think is a mistake a lot of newbie hypnotists tend to make.
Yeah. I think that I probably had a bit of that going on when I first started. Just You got to realize that hypnosis is sort of a personal thing. Not everyone is going to be ready for it at any time, especially if you're doing something that involves change, which requires commitment. If it was just something as simple as relaxation, probably a lot more people would be interested in it.
Yeah, yeah. And a huge portion of that is your framing, too, I would think, because I don't know, when I was working in Northern California in a college town that I will not name, uh, it was very weird because I keep telling people, "Oh, I'm a hypnotist," it's a college town, so people are automatically a little bit leery of older white men because it's a liberal college town. So when the older white man is like, "Oh, I can totally hypnotize you," I get a lot of weird looks. I should have done that market testing that you're talking about. I think it would have worked a lot better if I introduced it as a relaxation specialist or something.
Right, you could always try that and hear, well, yeah. Anyway.
So you're teaching online now. So the big question that we get in this day and age of pandemics and panic, and I love how those two words are connected. What effect do you think being on a screen now has? Do you think it's just as easy to hypnotize someone on a screen, a different medium, or is there some other better way to do it, do you think?
I mean, I would point to the American Psychological Association has put out a study saying that it's equally effective. I find that for my work, it's equally effective. There are some benefits to doing it online, and that if you're working with somebody in their home environment, they are actually pretty close to their triggers or the environment in which they're experiencing the problem. So that could be helpful. I even had a positive therapeutic outcome from a woman getting interrupted by her children. And she was just like, this always happens. And then it turned into something about, being able to make space for herself to do what she needed to do. Gotcha. And some of that was emotional, just being able to let go of what was going on outside the room. I mean, on the other hand, I would say that there's also some evidence that shows that if you sit on the screen all day, it can be a little bit tiring because you feel like you're in person with somebody, but you're really not. So there's this weird cognitive dissonance that your brain is trying to manage. But I think that in the context of a session, if you're just doing it for an hour at a time, it's not too bad.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that that's something that we in the industry and just as human beings in the technological age, we're going to be dealing with a lot more of the kind of minimized or the false connection, if you will, with people on the screen. We get that same, connection back and forth when we're talking with somebody face to face. And I do think hypnosis is going to play a big role in being able to learn how to connect online like that.
Definitely.
So speaking of interruptions when you're online and things that can sideswipe a hypnotic state, what are the kind of things that you encounter that can block hypnosis, or maybe a personality trait somebody might have that makes it more difficult for you to work with?
Well, I'm just thinking about that. That's the question about what if somebody when somebody gets into this state of mind where they whether they're consciously or unconsciously blocking hypnosis, I tend not to think about it whether somebody's hypnotized or not hypnotized. I just think about what state of mind they're in. So, I think I'm not in a trance. I've worked with people. So there's actually responding to suggestions and believing that you are hypnotized are two different things. And I've worked with people in the past that were responding to hypnotic suggestions that were kind of going back into spontaneous regressions or pulling up information from their subconscious about what was to do with this problem. But they didn't believe that they were hypnotized, which caused them anxiety. And it turned into something like a bad mushroom trip. Just that they're focusing and dilating on certain parts of the experience, but experiencing distress because they don't believe me. And I'm telling them they're hypnotized, and I don't know what it takes to convince them that they are. It's just kind of a weird thing that I've experienced. Not very often. I probably can point to maybe 2 times that happened in my experience, but I usually just kind of sidestep the whole concern about, I think it's probably my pre-talk has gotten better now. I'm just like, you don't have to worry about whether you're in trance or not, because we're always in some sort of trance.
Yeah.
So if you can just be where you are and not worry about it too much, and then we'll just kind of collaborate on where you want to go with that.
All right. Very cool. And that, I love what you said about the trance of thinking you're not in a trance.
Yeah.
Because that is just, it's the greatest thing when you're able to explain that to a client, or, if you have someone on stage or something like that, and just seeing that light bulb go off like, oh, yeah, I always am in that weird state of mind.
You're always in some state of mind. Yeah. What is a normal state of mind anyway?
Oh, I forgot years ago.
And here's another thing that I ask. So we have filters through which we perceive things, and it's good that we do. We wouldn't want to just believe anything that anyone could say about us. For example, that would probably be pretty harsh. But is it necessary to get rid of all of those filters in order to have a successful outcome from a hypnotic experience? And I think that the answer is really totally dependent on what kind of change you're trying to make. And I think that people can figure out what filters are appropriate to have and which ones can be set aside temporarily while you're trying to create a change.
I like that. Those perceptual filters, creating ones that facilitate what the person wants instead of the limiters. So, yeah, instead of seeing yourself as, the person who's always, let's say, depressed or anxious or something like that, instead you're the one who has conquered that particular thing. Pretty normal switch there, I think. So oftentimes people, especially in the academic world, will love to say that hypnosis is just placebo effect. Yeah. And usually if I'm feeling a little saucy, that's just kind of a like, yeah, no crap kind of thing. But I know from my experience, the theory of placebos kind of come from the pharmaceutical world where, it works, but it doesn't count. Which is silly,
the idea about the placebo, but I think that if you're actually a science nerd, you will understand that the placebo is a real and measurable effect.
Well,
and I think that if you can get like a 30% reduction in pain just by believing that you are receiving some sort of treatment, that's valid. The placebo works even if you know it's a placebo. There are also degrees of placebo. The more pomp and circumstance with which you offer the placebo treatment, the more effective it is generally. Some people respond better to the placebo effect than others. But aside from that, I think that there is something different going on with hypnosis. Probably some of the mechanisms that are involved in the placebo effect are at play with hypnotic phenomena. But I think that there's even more than that. For example, well, I'm not actually totally sure what constitutes the definition of a placebo. Do you know how it is generally defined?
Oh boy, back when
I know it's like a sugar pill is an example of a placebo.
Yeah, I think it's, or at least when I encountered it in psych, was I don't even remember what class it was. The placebo was simply people who had the measured outcome that did not receive the treatment, and there was really no explanation assigned to that group beyond, they aren't the ones we're looking for. Okay, that was pretty much my encounter with it.
People that received the drug versus the people that did not receive the drug. All right,
that all had
that's relatively straightforward to measure. I've seen some studies that kind of make me laugh about trying to administer fake hypnosis versus real hypnosis.
Yeah.
that's pretty funny. I don't know what to say about that. So the people that were not actually hypnotized, the results that they experienced were different than the people that were actually hypnotized. I don't know. There's a lot of disagreement that you can find in the studies about what even constitutes hypnosis, right? Yeah. So in hypnosis, I think that a lot of hypnosis has to do with the interaction between the practitioner and the client, and the state of the practitioner, and trying to guide the client into being in a certain state. There's probably stuff that involves mirror neurons. There's probably stuff that involves even just, invoking certain thoughts. You can change brain chemistry by focusing on different words that generate emotions. But, as far as, is that included in the placebo effect? I don't know enough about the placebo effect to say about that. But I think that probably there are some similarities and probably there are some differences.
Yeah, and there seems to be a breakdown between the actual scientific use of placebo in experiments and, like so many things in science, especially the mental or social sciences, between the scientific understanding and the layperson's use of the word. Kind of how so many lay people love to invoke the name of science with almost religious fervor, and they're like, well, science says this or that. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, science doesn't say anything. It's just a way of asking questions.
Science doesn't say anything. Science isn't an entity. Science doesn't have an opinion about anything. Science is a way of looking at the world and understanding the world. Yeah. And the information that can be found through science is constantly being made available versus based on what people are choosing to investigate.
Yeah. It's almost like it's a new religion in the way that some people invoke it.
I use science inappropriately sometimes, or I don't know if it's inappropriately, but
well, I mean, if it helps your client, it helps.
No, but I do. Like, I'll point to a study so that they can see that other people have found benefit from this procedure. And if it helps them to have a positive expectation for their own outcome, then it helps them. And I don't think there's anything morally wrong with that. I mean, I'm sure that science people would do that too. Doctors would do that. But it is a little bit of a hypnotist's use for science is as a convincer, right?
Yeah. Hypno privilege. Yeah. So have you ever, one question I run across a lot, and it always cracks me up, is somebody will make an appointment and just within an hour before the appointment, they'll be like, oh, by the way, is hypnosis satanic? Which always cracks me up. But have you ever had anyone like have some religious objections to hypnosis or questions about it?
I imagine most of the people that don't actually ever talk to me about it. But, I've given talks, like I gave a talk to a bunch of ladies at church one time. And one of them actually confided in me that she had been using self-hypnosis to alleviate her fibromyalgia pain, and it was very effective. She still had this concern, or perhaps, and I'm not even really sure where this belief came from. I'm not sure that the Methodist Church has an official stance on hypnosis, but she said that she was concerned that experiencing hypnosis with someone else was opening her up to outside influences. When I think about that, I'm like not out to convince anyone about what they should or should not do with their noggin.
Yeah, that's always the funny one. People have watched maybe Stir of Echoes or one of those other movies.
A lot of times it's it's not that they don't believe in that supernatural stuff. It's that they do, and they think that there's something to be concerned about.
But So when you have people, I've had a few clients who've had really just concerns, not really objections, and they tend to kind of have weird manifestations of, I'll just say mental disturbance. Like, they'll break out into a cold sweat, or they'll have the normal nervous symptoms or stuff like that. How much of a role do you think the state of consciousness or your mind will play in those physical symptoms? How does that play into hypnosis? Do you have to focus just on the mind, the body, or how does that work?
Um, I think it's really impossible to separate the two. I don't
Okay.
think that, I mean, your mind and your body are connected. And I think that the information processed in your body is not processed only in one place. Like your neurons are throughout our whole body.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Did that answer the question? I don't know.
In a roundabout way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking earlier about how the body will store those emotions in, say, muscle knots or something that a massage therapist can work out, which that's always interesting.
Yeah.
To see happen.
It's been interesting. I've had a lot of times it will happen with phobia release that somebody will be like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that I was missing this whole range of motion in my shoulders and my neck. And it went with the driving phobia.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember, oh, shoot, I've had at least half a dozen stress clients who you'll just kind of see that one shoulder start to rise up, and they're almost touching their ear with their shoulder because there's just such tension, and they're never really aware of it at that point in time. It's just how that mind and body connection works.
Yeah.
So do you think that's kind of more of a biological thing? Do you think there's some type of metaphysical thing involved in the mind-body connection? Just fair warning, this is usually when the interviews just go off into more weird esoteric areas. Just a heads up before we go.
I guess I feel like kind of this skeptical about the distinction between the metaphysical and everything else. I don't think that there's any such thing as something that is like not natural. But I do think that, there's this realm of ideas. Some people might call it energy. I don't really use that word because it's so vague. It could mean something that's physical. It could mean something that is like not physical. But Jung had this whole system of archetypes and that sort of thing, the collective unconscious. And so when you start working in that realm, the distinction between what is real and what is not real, it kind of like blurs. Things are real in that realm in that you experience them, that they're part of the human experience. They're not necessarily real in that there is actually a unicorn out there somewhere that's going to turn up.
Well, hopefully hopefully there's a unicorn out there that'll step out of the woods one day, but
yeah,
kind of doubt it. Yeah, and it's a very interesting thing that I think our industry is very lucky to be able to deal with, is we get to see those changes and those the odd strange phenomenon that happens that wanders into, and I love that you brought up Jung, because I try and stay away from it, because Jung is just a rabbit hole for me. I will just go straight down it without hesitation. But we find those weird moments of synchronicity, I think, in this work. And I think putting people and putting ourselves in and out of trance so many times, and wandering through those different states of consciousness, tends to leave our lives a little more open to that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So you recently gave a talk at a university's class of magic and witchcraft, which I think is just the best name for a class ever.
It was a classics class.
Classics. Okay. The university I was at did it under anthropology, so I guess different schools put it in different ways. So the obvious question is, do you consider hypnosis to be in one of those realms, magic or witchcraft? Are you bespelling people? Be honest.
I think that a lot of witchcraft utilizes trance states, and I think that if you define magic as changing things with your thoughts or intentions, then you could include hypnosis under that umbrella. But I think that if you were to go that route, I would not say that then says there isn't a perfectly scientific explanation for what's happening. It's magical and mysterious, and that we don't totally understand it. And there's part of me that thinks that not understanding is kind of part of it. It has to do with our relationship with the unknown, and playing with how we frame our experiences and how we name our experiences. And in order to have complete creative control over that, we need to get to a place that even precedes naming or knowing, right? So yeah, it's magical in that the human experience is magical. But that doesn't mean that it is paranormal.
Gotcha. Okay. I love the fact that you use the word paranormal, because I think that is such a better word than supernatural. Because supernatural, of course, I mean, that's above natural. So you're automatically saying there's no natural laws that apply to something. But paranormal, that's just something that is beside normal, which for most people, I find that normal life to just be boring and dry and kind of lame, really. No offense to anyone out there. If you're leading a normal life, good on you. But still, it's great to be able to, wander into your inner realms and do all sorts of kooky stuff whenever you feel like it. Speaking of, I received a phone call. I'm going to share a quick story. This wasn't a client, but I'm not going to share any names. It was one of those calls you get every so often where the person is convinced someone else is using hypnosis against them because they're aligned with the CIA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure you've probably had more than one contact over the years as that's happened. But how do you make any accommodations for people with schizophrenia or some type of, let's call it, alternative experience system?
So it's not for me to diagnose if somebody has schizophrenia, but I think that if somebody were to call me about that, I probably would not work with them because that is not my area of expertise. There might be some people out there that specialize in that sort of thing. That is not me. And definitely, I think if somebody had a confirmed diagnosis of schizophrenia, that would be out of my scope of practice.
Gotcha. That was pretty much what I do when they contact you. Just keep working with your psychiatrist. Yeah. Don't go see another hypnotist.
Yeah.
What's the biggest change you've done? The most rewarding case?
I pretty much I adore all of the changes that my clients make.
Okay. Every hypnotist I ask this to, by the way, does exactly what you just did. They kind of look down and start to blush a little. It's one of the great parts of our industry is we just feel good and slightly shy about the help that we bring.
Yeah. Anytime somebody is able to find relief from pain or make a change like quitting smoking or just relax and feel better, just finding their resourceful state, I think that is magical. I could even share, I think I will, just because this is a pretty good story, and I shared it that talk that I gave you at what was that in the thoughts, the one of my friend using the resourcing to check out of pain when her bandages were being changed in the hospital. Okay. I thought that was such a resourceful use of self-hypnosis. maybe because I didn't actually spoon feed her the application. She came up with it herself.
Nice.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's funny when it comes to change. There's got to be, like, in order for it to seem very dramatic, there's got to be a big gap between where the person is starting from and where they wind up.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody that is afraid of eating solid food and then texts me later and says he's eating steak, that's wonderful. It wouldn't be as impressive if my fibromyalgia client did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still in pain, but enjoying a good steak. Well,
So
that's not what we worked on.
Yeah, I guess that's like kind of what makes it hard to quantify, because like, I just think that anyone that can end up in a good place, that's valid, but it tends to be more like exciting or impressive if they have to traverse distance to get there.
Yeah, a lot like the what's the old saying? The purpose is in the journey, not the end.
Yeah, to some extent, yeah. Well, all right. So, here's another example. So I could show you the greatest relaxation technique ever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're already relaxed, it's not going to feel like it does
It's true. So do you make people tense and then show them the relaxation state?
No, I probably wouldn't give them the relaxation technique if they were already relaxed.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So you do you do a lot of therapeutic work and educational work now, of course. But what do you think about the entertainment hypnosis, or even better, movies that show hypnosis, and the creepy hypnotist who's controlling people who commit crimes or something?
I love stage hypnotists. I haven't been to a ton of stage shows, but many of the stage hypnotists that I have met are also therapeutic hypnotists, and they do a great job of representing the profession. Of course, it's mixed, and some people may be less in the direction of hypnotherapy than others. As far as entertainment hypnosis goes, I think that even Get Out. Did you see Get Out?
I actually have not seen it yet, but my mom saw it and immediately called me, and she was like, "Is this real? Can that happen?" So she sent me the hypnosis scenes where she's stirring the coffee and such, and I was like, "Well, yeah,
kind of like that." So, like, when Get Out came out, it actually stirred up a lot of interest in hypnosis, not because everyone wanted to get a lobotomy, but because it brought it into the public awareness. So even the creepy representation, it's kind of that old saying, all press is good press.
Yeah. There's definitely some value, I think, in even bad depictions, because I think that the more in any field of change work, hypnosis, psychotherapy, even pastoral counseling, or just plain old religious trances, we're being exposed to that depth of human experience, those inner realms that we're supposed to wander into, because they come with the software, for pity's sake.
Exactly. I think there's something that just kind of popped into my mind when you were saying that, and I'm thinking about different kinds of marginalized communities, and sometimes when I first start coming more into public awareness, there's this pressure to be all things to all people, or to be the perfect representation of a Black person in academia or whatever. And it's actually progress in social rights, as far as I'm concerned, to just have the permission and freedom to be yourself, to not be perfect, right? Or to allow there to be some people of that group that aren't representing it as well as others, or, doing it in their own kind of way. So.
Yeah. And I've found that is a huge pressure that people are dealing with right now. And I'm thinking this youngest generation, which I can say because now I'm technically an old man, these younger kids, they're going to be dealing with that type of pressure, trying to represent themselves as an example of whatever peer group they see themselves in, because of, they're growing up with social media influencers, who I'm not generally a fan of. Trying to live the perfect life as representations, and there's no room in there just to be a human being anymore. And I think that's something that any hypnotist out there may want to niche into, because that market's probably going to grow. So you look like you had something you were about to say. Did I interrupt?
No, I was making up your profile, Nicholas Eli, human
Which
being.
profile? Oh, my Facebook profile?
Yeah, any your professional profile. Human being. Okay. Professional human being.
There you go. I think that would probably start a conversation that I think would work with somebody. I think I will add that to my business cards too. Professional human being. See what conversation that kicks up. So in hypnosis, we're taking people into these deeper inner states, these powerful trance states, which just by their existence implies that our ego state, the I, which we sit up front and experience everything, is likely the smallest portion of our experience, of our consciousness, if you want to use the C word. What do you feel would be I saw those eyebrows go, because this is a good question. What do you feel is a good description of the depth of human experience? What's consciousness versus unconsciousness for you?
Well, I think that there are different organizational levels of consciousness. So okay. I think that, your cells are little systems in and of themselves that communicate with each other in order to have a coordinated function. There are different kinds of cells that have different kinds of functions, and they organize these kind of tiered groups of increasing levels of organization. Obviously, there's communication that happens between different parts of your body. And then I believe also that even outside of ourselves, that groups of people are systems that have a coordinated function. Some of it is more codified than others. Some of it is more tradition bound than others. Some of it is like more rapidly evolving. And these groups, they overlap. So, for example, you're part of many different groups. You're part of the hypnotist group. Probably like certain subsets of hypnotist group. You're part of Stephanie Kunkel's profound somnambulism protocol group, right?
Yeah, I hang out there. Hi, Stephanie, if you're watching.
Yeah, you're also an American. I think that groups of people are conscious, have a certain kind of consciousness that and can behave like entities, and that's kind of like a trippy concept to think about. I don't think that we're fully conscious of how we do that for the most part. And if we become conscious of how we're doing that, it can pose its own problems, because groups of people don't like to be like hijacked or controlled.
Yeah.
Right? I like to be guided and influenced in certain ways sometimes if it is for the best of the group, but they don't want to be exploited. So, and then that is a layer of organization. And then I think, probably, this is probably difficult for us to comprehend, but our whole planet is a system, you know, and we're all connected to all the processes that are going on the planet. And being aware of how all of that works is definitely beyond our comprehension. But I bet you would notice that there's a difference between us and all the other planets.
The ones that we see, definitely. Yeah. Or unless all the aliens are, you know, just hiding from us, probably wisely. I imagine that would be a shock for any foreign life form to wander into our particular area, look at us, and then just go, what are you? Okay,
it'd be
you
like
guys
in
have
that
your own thing
Douglas
going
Adams
on.
book where they bulldoze planet Earth to make space for a highway.
Oh, Hitchhiker's Guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Didn't think there was anything important there.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's just one planet. But yeah, the Gaia hypothesis, I like that. And you're definitely right. I think in the insanity that we're seeing in the world these days, especially here in the US, go America, we're seeing a lot of the social consciousness go through that same type of chaotic transformational problems that we see when a human being, an individual, goes through crisis. You know, you have to face your own Jungian terms, you have to face your own shadow, and you have to go through your dark night of the soul to bring Joseph Campbell into the mess too.
Right.
And hopefully survive and grow from it rather than, you know, experience disorganization and falling to pieces, which hopefully won't happen. Who knows? So as a hypnotist, as a professional change worker, Marian, what are you going to do to fix the world? And when are you going to do it? Because seriously, it is like it's almost 9 a.m. I'm running out of time.
I want to be contrary and say that nothing at all.
Okay.
That I'm going to let the world be the way that it is. It is like perfect, just the way that it is. There's something in the Tao Te Ching about that, about how it is kind of this raw energy that is kind of like perfect in its imperfection, and always changing. So I don't know.
Okay. Just let them fall where they may, I guess.
Well, you know, I think that when it comes to all of these kind of forces that seem beyond our control, like what give me a list of things to fix.
Pandemic panic. We'll start with that small issue that's probably not on many people's minds right now.
So here is how I would not do anything to the pandemic. Is I would be like, okay, I accept that there's a pandemic happening, and I am going to act accordingly. To the best of my knowledge, I am going to take what seem like reasonable risks to me in order to go about my daily life, and I'm not going to take a whole bunch of unnecessary risks, because why would I do that? I'm going to help people in the stress that they are experiencing around this situation. And I'm not going to suggest they are experiencing stress around the situation, because some people are and some people are not as much. So that is my version of helping by doing nothing.
Okay. I like that. There's certainly something to be said for not, you know, reaching in and trying to have an effect on an already chaotic system.
Well,
in your own, I mean, obviously you, Marian Spurgeon, are not going to, you know, fix the world, but you know,
I'm not going to come up with a cure for COVID.
Yeah, I mean, do you
probably not
have a cure for COVID?
But you know, I mean, I've done some experiments, some things in my mind of just talking to systems. I think COVID, the virus, has a certain consciousness of its own, whatever that is. We're probably a pretty different consciousness than ours, but it's interacting with ours. we're having a conversation. The human race is in a conversation with COVID right now. And I think, to me, from my perspective, from where I sit, the people that are experiencing the most distress are the ones that are struggling with change, struggling with having to wear masks in certain situations, struggling with the uncertainty of whether schools are going to be open or not, what that really means. And, you know, I think I have a lot of compassion for people that are in positions to make those decisions about whether to open school or not. I don't think that there is necessarily a right answer. And it's hard dealing with change, but I guess like that is the concept in the Tao Te Ching, is to do by not doing. It's not that by accepting the situation, you're not doing anything, but you're handling the situation by accepting it.
I like that. More of a nail down everything that's going on inside here and simply let others.
Now, what is wrong with this situation? Am I making it wrong by my perception of it?
Okay, so by altering the perception of the situation, you can improve the situation without trying?
Yeah, it is what it is.
Okay, I like that. It does bring a certain peace of mind, I think, to the entire thing. Would be a good policy there, I think. So, we're closing in on our last 10 minutes here. I'd like to know more about this program here. What can you tell me about the program that you're putting together that you haven't told me already?
Oh, yeah. So for the hypnosis certification training, you can sign up for that, or you can go to my website, marianspurgeon.com. That is where I am, where I have all the information about that. And there's the ability to sign up for level 1 or level 2. Level 2 is actually, I think, appropriate, even if one has already been trained as a hypnotist, because it has that ability to design your own course. So it's basically what you would be doing, and you could do it on your own, but the benefit to doing it with me is that then you have me to help.
There's a lot to be said for having someone who's walked that path already show you how to do it.
Definitely. Yeah. And not only me, but also all the people that are in my group.
Like a support group for hypnotists. That would be a really interesting concept.
Yeah, no. Also, I might not have mentioned this, but there's a component to my course. So if people who are taking the course can show up for the live hours. But if you're not taking my course, you can also subscribe for a low monthly fee. It's starting out at $20 a month. You can join my group to practice with other people if that's something that you feel would help you.
It's super reasonable. And I have noticed that's something that's kind of missing is practice groups, especially for newer hypnotists who are just learning how to say the bare basics, submodality shifts or two-step metaphors or something like that. It'd be super handy. Definitely a good resource out there. And in that circumstance, I think we're going to go ahead and say goodbye, unless there's anything else you wanted to plug right now.
Thanks for having me.
Well, hey, thanks for showing up, Marian. I really appreciate it. So, last words of wisdom. Anything you want to toss out there into the screaming void of the internet? Now, these may be words of posterity for you that everyone will remember because of the latency effect. So choose carefully. No pressure.
Yeah. Just open a space of curiosity and play.
All right. Good. I like it.
All right.
All right, Marian, thanks for joining me here. And I want to wish you all the best with your program. And thanks. I hope to talk to you again soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. And that was Marian Spurgeon, the phenomenal Marian Spurgeon. Now, Marian's a great example of something that is innately magical about the hypnosis community and industry, and that's the amazing amount of support that this industry offers to people who participate in it. Very different from other business models in which competition is encouraged and people are, well, trying to undercut each other, undersell each other, or just plain compete. And that's not the case in the hypnosis industry. The vast majority of people in the hypnosis industry that I have encountered in the convention circuit and speaking engagements and just interacting and networking with other hypnotists has shown that hypnotists tend to be some of the best people around. You don't really get into the business unless you are dead set on helping other people. Or if you do get in with other intentions, you don't last very long. And that's another one of the wonderful things about the hypnosis industry. So if you're interested in learning more about hypnosis, joining a powerful, growing industry and movement, getting a skill set that can help you improve your life and the life of others, definitely pop on by to marianspurgeon.com, see what she has to offer. While you're there, tell her I sent you, and hello from me, of course. I'll put the link down below for you. And I'd like to say thanks, of course, to Marian for joining me, and thanks to you for spending your hour with me. Now, odds are pretty good, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. You probably noticed that there was almost a year between my last episode and today. Unfortunately, the world being what it is, I had to take some time off to deal with some real-world and life issues. But hey, we're back now, and I'm bringing in a new format for you. I'm going to be including some video along with the audio, and we'll be a lot more interactive with anyone who'd like to reach out to us. So if you have any suggestions for the show, constructive criticisms, deconstructive criticisms, or you'd like to recommend a guest, go ahead and reach out to me through my YouTube channel, The Drifting Deeper Podcast, or on my Facebook page, also The Drifting Deeper Podcast. I'll be sure and get back to you. Once again, thanks for spending your hour with me. And before you go, I'd just like to remind you that as much as the world seems like it's on fire sometimes and everything is going sideways, just remember to stop, take a breath, and remember the amazing miracle that is this world and your life. And remember to go out into this world and love each other and love yourself. Thanks for coming by. You have a great one.